Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. Yes. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's really difficult to drink out of a paper straw when if you're just, like, if you don't gulp it down immediately, it starts to bend.
Yes.
And then, the little thing catches it, and then, so we got to kind of perfect that one a little bit more.
Ah, yes. Now, did she actually graduate high school? Or is she... I'm a little confused because adults don't behave that way, and kind of peculiar, I think. Yeah. Well, happy Monday and welcome back. We continue to be attainable, reachable at 888-630-9625. 888-630-9625 is the telephone number. I want to get us some Kamala. We've got President Trump. He's going to jail his political opponents. I read it in the Washington Post. If he wins, be afraid, be very afraid. It's the end of democracy. I think the Democrats are really upset that their boy missed. I think that's what they're most upset about. But it's not over. That's not over. That's definitely not over. Now, a story that did pop over the weekend before getting to Kamala at her spice store. She, and what is it? Nasty Spice. Remember the Spice Girls? She's like Nasty Spice. That's Vicious Spice, political spice. But I don't think they want her in the Spice Girls. She cackles too much. They could use her cackling in the background for a song maybe. But here's a fun headline from the New York Post, because the Washington Post doesn't cover the news. And the New York Times doesn't cover the news. The headline is Biden's astonishing vacation total revealed. Prez took 48 years worth of leave in 4. What's that? 48 years worth of leave in 4 years as president. President Biden spends almost as much time on R&R, that's rest and relaxation, as he does running the country. The 81-year-old commander-in-chief has racked up 532 vacation days in less than 4 years. How many days are in a year again? Let me see. And it's really just 3.5 years, not even a full 4 years yet. About 40% of the 1,326 days he's been in office. It would take the average American, who gets 11 days a year of vacation, approximately 48 years to accumulate that number of days off, according to shocking data compiled by the Republican National Committee. The news media will reject it and not do the math themselves because they're too busy having sex with the Democrat Party. The image of Biden fast asleep and lying flat on his back in a chair at the beach while America and the world is on fire will define the Biden presidency, said Mark Paoletta, the general counsel of the White House Budget Office under former President Trump, and a friend of mine with whom I text frequently. Inflation has been out of control. Prices still way too high. Our border overrun with millions of illegal aliens committing violent crimes on our citizens. The world is in a perilous state, and all Biden wants to do is go on vacation and check out for more than 530 days, said Mark Paoletta. Now, that's pretty amazing, the numbers there. The RNC noted that last Saturday's Fun in the Sun for Biden in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, was his 16th straight day on vacation. Spent some time at a billionaire's ranch in Central California behind the Santa Ynez Mountains from Santa Barbara, California. Then, took Air Force One back to Delaware, where he went straight to the beach and dragged his 6-ounce aluminum beach chair over there like it was lifting weights. Isn't that amazing? So the New York Post front page reported last year that Biden spent all or part of 382 of the first 957 days of his presidency, or 40%, on personal overnight trips away from the White House, putting him on pace to become America's most idle commander-in-chief. Most idle commander-in-chief everywhere, anywhere. Isn't that amazing? By contrast, Ronald Reagan vacation just 11% of his presidency. Joe Biden 40%. Barack Obama vacationed just 11% of his presidency. And amazing stuff. Jimmy Carter vacationed only 79 days, only 5% of his one term in office. Maybe he should have vacationed more. Maybe things might have turned out better. Remarkable stuff. So Joe Biden, he's checked out. He is nowhere to be found. Isn't that amazing? Now let's go to Kamala, because Kamala over the weekend went to a spices store, and there was a very funny tweet from our news media and about Kamala, because she went to a spices store, and it was hilarious because the Washington Post reporter filed a kind of a report of sorts on her visit to the spices store, and it is a perfect emblem, a perfect symbol of everything you need to know about the Democrat Party, because what they pretend to report and the questions that occur to them are almost hilarious. And I've got that for you coming up too. But right now, let's go to Kamala, because she went to a spice store, and it was kind of a funny moment, and then kind of a really dangerously pathetic moment, because she's Kamala Harris, and honestly, she went to a spice store called Penzeys. It's Penzeys. Pen. It's not even an apostrophe S. It's just Penzeys. And Penzeys, they have stores. There are multiple stores right around here, around Washington, D.C. And a friend of mine, actually, who lives in California but used to live around here, Mona, texted me, oh, yeah, I used to go to Penzeys in Falls Church when I lived back there, but I quit years ago because of their politics. So people have known about their politics for a long, long time at this Penzeys Spices store. They're radical left-wing hate cult, and they're filthy America haters, and they have a special dislike for Republicans. Got to look out for those Republicans, because they might be on the side of the United States of America and freedom-loving people everywhere. So when you're a Democrat, you're, of course, opposed to that. And Kamala went there to Penzeys, and she bought some stuff that one of our Washington Post reporters that detailed the spices that she bought. Very excited. And a pretty funny stuff. Now, I don't see the Penzeys thing here. I see the whole thing. But she went to Penzeys. So Kamala went to Penzeys, and when she was inside the store, she was asked a question by a fake reporter who's just a Democrat Party representative, and she said that it's important, that unity is important, and we have to, and really she's talking about Trump. But I want to share with you, because this group Penzeys, with their stores all over the place, they posted on their website about Republicans. If you go to their website, they've got spices and trail bags and gift boxes and accessories and express orders and about us. And then a separate tab on their website on the front page, the main page, about Republicans. And it goes on, because you can't shut left-wing lunatics up. It goes on and on about how terrible Republicans are, and how great Democrats are, shooting everybody, and the open borders and the gang members and all that stuff, because they love all that. Now, their website says, going forward, we will still be glad to have you, speaking of Republicans, we will still be glad to have you as customers. No, you won't. But we're done pretending the Republican Party's embrace of cruelty. Cruelty? Have you ever seen such cruelty? Honestly, the Republican Party's embrace of cruelty. You aborted more than 1 million babies last year, including 40% of the black population. Democrats shot more than 10,000 people and killed them last year in the United States of America. Democrat Party is, lost 300,000 children is now the new number at the southern border of illegal alien children. You lost 300,000 of them. I assume that you sold them into child sex slavery, because you are the party of Epstein Island and Bill Clinton and all that. So going forward, we'll still be glad to have you as customers, they say it at Penzies. But we're done pretending the Republican Party's embrace of cruelty, racism, COVID lies, climate change denial, and threats to democracy are anything other than the risks they legitimately are. This is their website. This is a public company that asks customers to come in and spend their money in their filthy commie store. Now, cruelty, stop shooting people, stop looting businesses. I wonder if Penzies has ever been looted by Democrats, because they're the only filthy, rotten, cruel, racist people that loot. Oh, yeah, and racism. Hey, Penzies, the Confederate States of America were the Democrat States of America. Every Jim Crow law was a Democrat law. The KKK, founded by a statewide leader of the Democrat Party, and Nathan Bedford Forrest. And the only Klansman I ever met was one of Joe Collins' colleagues, who was a Democrat senator from West Virginia, Robert Byrd. And you guys champion him like he's a hero of some kind. Let's see, COVID lies. Oh, like Joe Biden. Should I start playing all the audio of Joe Biden saying if you get the vaccine, you won't get COVID? If you use the mask, a surgical mask, you won't get COVID? That it didn't come from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. COVID lies? Really? Climate change denial. I don't deny that the climate has always changed. You deny that the climate has always changed. Threats to democracy. Oh, you mean like using the Justice Department against your political enemies and the FBI doing pre-dawn raids of the political enemies of the party in power? Speaking of which, the lead story in the Washington Post today is Maduro rival flees to Spain. This is in Venezuela. We've got thousands and thousands of Venezuelan gang members marauding through the country thanks to the Democrat Party and their cruelty and their racism and their climate change denial. But Maduro rival flees to Spain. Gonzalez leaves in blow to opposition. He's the opposition leader who actually won the presidential election in Venezuela. But the socialist Nicolas Maduro, who is bringing the glories of socialism just like the Democrat Party is to the United States, Venezuela had moved to arrest election challenger. Wait a minute. That's what the Democrats are doing in the United States of America. They're moving to arrest the election challenger, and they're moving to arrest their political opponent and trying to put him in prison for decades on end. Edmundo Gonzalez, the Venezuelan opposition candidate for president and likely winner of the July 28th election, the Washington Post says, wait a minute, you mean the election wasn't legitimate and the election was stolen? But I thought that couldn't happen and didn't happen. I guess it can happen in Venezuela, but not here, is that right? He fled the South American nation on Saturday and received asylum in Spain, not in the United States, under threat of imminent arrest by his country's authoritarian government. Donald Trump is living under the constant threat of arrest by the authoritarian government here. Gonzalez's departure is a crushing setback for the U.S.-backed opposition movement. You mean Joe Biden and the U.S. are backing the people that say the election was stolen? Wow, were it not for double standards, you guys would have no standards at all. The U.S.-backed opposition movement, which had hoped his apparent landslide win would pressure Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro, he's a socialist hero, to negotiate a transition. What? They want them to switch genders? Is that what they want? To power. Oh, wait. Oh, that's about power rather than gender. Instead, Maduro declared himself the winner of the election. Hey, wait a minute. This does sound more and more like the United States with every passing. Just amazing. Yeah, so at Penzies, it's not pansies, it's Penzies, but it's like pansies with an E. So, on the other hand, if you still want the best spices and don't need us to respect what you now vote for to be our customer, now, this is pretty amazing stuff. So this radical left-wing store, they wear their radical left-wing politics on their forehead like a gang tattoo. And wait till you hear what Kamala said when she went there over the weekend. Because this is definitely where you go if you want to preach unity and togetherness, isn't it? With these fascists at Penzies. And by the way, if you Google this awful, horrible store, you'll find that there is a boycott movement now underway. Penzies invites Republican boycott. Ilya Shapiro. And this story, they're just lucky we're not Democrats because they'd all have been looted by now. We're at 888-630-9625.
Now be cruel, be brutal, because heaven knows they will.
Let's go to Kamala Harris inside this Penzies store because she's the hero of the story. Now, here's what she said. Again, this place, this store, it's a radical political leftist store. They sell spices, I assume nothing else. And Kamala went in there with this Republican-hating death cult, kill all the black babies, rob everything, loot all the businesses, shoot the cops, support the jihad and Hamas. And she went into this store to say that there is no time like the present to put division behind us because, nothing says coming together like Penzies.
What's the one thing you want to really get across to him?
Well, there's a lot, but look, it's time to turn the page.
Turn the page.
On the divisiveness.
You're the page.
It's time to bring our country together. Chart a new way forward.
And that's why you went to Penzies, where on their website they attack half the country as racist when you guys kill 40% of the black babies and you guys created the KKK and Jim Crow. You guys stood in schoolhouse doors and you're the ones to bring us together. Is that the case? So it's time. It's all about the togetherness, right? That's right. And then the news media reports very dutifully on the spices that she bought, and none of the other ironies, because they don't do irony very well at all. This is your Democrat Party today, and the dim-witted Ms. Harris, the Vice President of the United States, amazingly, just amazing. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's time we put the device. Turn the page. You guys are the page. She's not. You're the vice president. You're the candidate. You've been the vice president for coming up on 4 years. Your president is Joe Biden. You guys are the page that needs to be turned. I agree with her there. It's time to turn the page on the Democrat Party lunacy. Thank you.
Best part of debate prep for you? What's your favorite?
Being at the spice store, I finally got out of the debate prep to look at these spices. Best part of debate prep so far.
Why is that hilarious? Is that hilarious? So she went to this KKK spice store, this hate spice store. I like spices. I might probably not go to a spice store and shop ever in my life, but spices are the spice of life, as they say, and in food, they're, that's where I like them most of the time. But Kamala went there and she said, it's the time for unity at this hate cult. An American Thinker has a good story on this. Kamala Harris's campaign in Pittsburgh at vehemently anti-Republican Penzies spice business, decrying divisiveness. No sense of irony, these people. Can I just say, these people. And then she was, after saying, oh, yeah, it's time for unity at this KKK spice store. And they hate the Jews. They hate the America. And Republicans, you serve in the military or police officer. You raise normal children who aren't suicidal, gender-confused lunatics. And you're the villain of the story because at Penzies. It's like Penzies, but with an E. And amazing stuff. And Kamala was then asked about the endorsement that she has received from first Liz Cheney and then Dick Cheney. Now, the left-wing media also has another one on Kamala Harris's favorite foods, because that's what you get now. Amazing stuff. Let's go to Kamala in the spices store, the hate store called Penzies. There are a couple of Penzies just up the road from where we are now, right, in Rockville and Gaithersburg or something like that. Don't ever go there. Just don't ever go there. They hate you. They hate America. They hate people. But they're greedy, grubby, corporate scrubbers, so they'll take your money. They don't care. But they hate you. They think you're a racist, and then they exterminate 40% of the black population. You know, the Nazi Party, the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, exterminated about 60% of the Jewish population in Europe in World War II in what we call the Holocaust. The Democrats exterminate 40% of the black population year after year, decade after decade, and there's no end in sight. And here's Kamala saying that she's thrilled to have the endorsement of first Liz Cheney and then Dick Cheney, because the vaunted Cheney endorsement is very important to the Democrat Party in 2024.
I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party.
They're well respected. Liz Cheney, she became well respected when she became a traitorous, treasonous anti-Republican in the January 6th committee and completely ignored the sacking, the attack on the White House, burning the Church of the Presidents, where 160 to 180 police were injured. The president and first family were evacuated from the residence in the White House. 3 days of riots, not exactly Woodstock, in Lafayette Park. They brought pallets of frozen water bottles. They brought M80s to throw at the cops and injured, again, 160 to 180 police. They set the Church of the Presidents on fire. But Liz Cheney didn't see anything interesting in that. Neither did the Washington Post or the New York Times, because a Democrat riot is just like a picnic. But any Republican riot, after you guys green light and the news media says they're mostly peaceful, they ignore the burning city blocks behind them and all that good stuff. So Dick Cheney supports Harris, says Trump can never be trusted with power again. That's what Dick Cheney said. But Dick Cheney is the most hated man in the history of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. The Democrats, they hate everybody, but they rarely hate anyone more than they've hated Dick Cheney. But now Dick Cheney is very well respected. Kamala said it herself. I don't think she knows who he is. She might not be aware of who he is. That's amazing. Dick Cheney says he's voting for Kamala Harris in November, and Trump can never be trusted with power again. The news media loves it. CNN and left-wing Politico, left-wing CNN, left-wing ABC News, left-wing NPR. Former VP Dick Cheney says he will vote for Harris. Now, that really is just pulling the sock of history inside out, isn't it? That's completely crazy. Dick Cheney is now, he's no longer on the Democrat Party's beep list. Now he's a respected leader. It's interesting how you become a respected leader in the Democrat Party. Amazing. Former Vice President Dick Cheney said he plans to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris instead of former President Donald Trump, explaining that his decision had to do with Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Now, the Democrats tried desperately to overturn the 2000 election, which was Bush and Cheney. Isn't that fascinating? And they brought it all the way to the Supreme Court. And remember, dangling Chads and hanging Chads. And they love men named Chad, don't they? That's pretty amazing stuff. And Dick Cheney in the 2000 election, and then they contested the 2004 election. And he may recall, and he may not recall, Dick Cheney. He's been, off the field of play for some time now. But, and I've met Dick Cheney several times many years ago when he was defense secretary and even a member of Congress and so on. But honestly, you remember Terry McAuliffe, the DNC chair, he said that the 2000 election was stolen and that the 2004 election was stolen. And he never came around to say, no, the 2000 election wasn't stolen or the 2004 election wasn't stolen.
If Catherine Harris Jeb Bush,
2000 election,
Jim Baker,
stolen.
and the Supreme Court hadn't tampered with the results,
Hadn't tampered.
Al Gore would be president.
Al Gore would be president, and he continues to claim that the 2000 election was stolen, and he did everything he could to have it overturned. And Terry McAuliffe, the DNC chair and then governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Democrat, said the 2004 election was stolen.
We actually won the last presidential election, folks. They stole the last presidential election.
Yes, sir. That's perfectly normal now. Amazing. Dick Cheney is 83 years old now, and in a statement said, "In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election." Hillary Clinton said the 2016 election was stolen from her. Using lies and violence, the 3-day siege of the White House. I was down on Pennsylvania Avenue on Donald Trump's inauguration day. Watched the limousine burn and the storefronts be smashed out by the Democrat Party. Not a problem. And then the big rally on the Mall the next day because it was going to be the Hillary Clinton celebration where they talked about Madonna talked about blowing up the White House, and they talked about burning things down. And there was a mob of hundreds of thousands of people. Never mind that. But Dick Cheney said that he tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him by saying, "Go down and peacefully and patriotically protest." Is that was the stealing part? "He can never be trusted with power again," said Cheney in a widely reported statement. Yeah, because it serves the interests of the Democrat Party. He added, "As citizens, we each have a duty to put country above partisanship and defend our Constitution." I agree with that. "That's why I will be casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. It's the end of the world." Now, on Morning Joke this morning, on Morning Joke with Mo Yarborough and his semi-inflatable flotation device of a third wife, Mika. It'll be the Dick and Mika show. Dick and Mika together again. And amazing stuff. And this morning they were very excited about Dick Cheney endorsing the Democrat.
Now also Cheney's father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, the former Republican vice president, following the warning we heard from his daughter that it's not enough just to not vote for Donald Trump. He will take the next step and vote for Kamala Harris.
And again, amazing stuff that Kamala said she was honored to have the endorsement of Dick Cheney, which couldn't be more ironic. And she called him well-respected. She called him a well-respected leader. He's never been well-respected by the Democratic Party before. He has been compared to Satan by the Democratic Party and by Democrats on large stages and so on. Just amazing. And Kamala Harris went to this Republican-hating spice shop to declare it's time to turn the page on the divisiveness. You mean like with the, what did Hillary Clinton call half the country? Basket of deplorables. The divisiveness of everybody's a racist except the party of the KKK and the Confederate States of America, the party that aborts 40% of the black population, the party that has Joe Biden with all his racist pals, and he didn't want his kids going to school in a racial jungle when they were racially integrating schools in his state of Delaware. Time to bring our country together, Kamala said. Chart a new way forward. Well, a new way forward is not you. You are the same way forward. You're right. It is time to chart a new way forward. Just amazing stuff. Yes, it is. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, former vice president is an irrelevant rhino. And then this newspaper, NPR story actually says they had to explain rhino. Rhino is an acronym for Republican name and name only, because NPR readers don't know what that means because they have their heads wedged up into one another's dark and remote locations. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. Yes, sir. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael, which I haven't been doing enough of today, have I? Let's go to Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Heck. Heck, calling from Bethesda, Maryland. Heck, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning once again.
Hey,
Chris, you're a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. Before I get to what I was calling about, as far as the spices thing,
Yeah.
wasn't the whole going to the New World to exploit the resources is the whole thing about why the Europeans conquered the indigenous people? I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The subjugation of the people of India and the subcontinent and in Asia and China, it's because in England their food was so boring that they were willing to get on rickety, leaking little wooden boats 100 feet long and go through stormy seas to get someplace to bring home cumin.
Well, thank God they did, or otherwise my food would be so bland. But that's not why I was calling. Did you happen to catch Fox News on Friday had an article about Jane Fonda where, and this is a quote here, she was addressing overseas people. The Orange Man will not let that happen. He puts the people who don't agree with him in jail, and he said he's going to make their lives miserable. Now, isn't that what the communists did when they conquered South Vietnam?
Yeah, it's what communists have
so
done everywhere.
Jane Fonda would know when somebody was going to do that.
Yeah, well, it's not just Hanoi Jane either, a traitorous, treasonous, treacherous beep who is known really exclusively as Hanoi Jane. Orange Man Trump will jail protesters. I'm sorry, you guys are still hunting down January 6 protesters and jailing them, but you didn't jail the people that laid siege to the White House for 3 days, injuring 160 to 180 police, forcing the evacuation of the President of the United States, setting fire to the historic 1814 Church of the Presidents, St. John's Church, just across from the White House. Nobody went to prison for that. But if you talk about jailing your political enemies, they've jailed, I think, thousands of people from January 6th, the day that Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed while unarmed after serving 12 years honorably in the U.S. Air Force for the alleged crime of trespassing. And nobody jailed for the attacks on the Mark Hatfield Courthouse in Portland, which I think laid siege to for 100 days. They burned police departments, police stations down. They burned more police cars than can be counted. They injured literally thousands of police officers in their riots. They burned cities from Seattle and Portland to Kenosha to Washington. They looted my neighborhood twice. They looted the neighborhood around this radio station at least twice. The city of Washington downtown was boarded up for months on end because of all the Democrat Party riots. And nobody was jailed for any of those. But actress and environmental activist Jane Fonda once again addressed an overseas audience, warning Democratic voters abroad that former President Donald Trump will jail anyone who protests his policies if he's reelected. That's a flagrant lie and ridiculous. I mean, again, he was in the White House when they laid siege to the White House for 3 days, and the Secret Service brought him to the underground nuclear bunker, and his family too. But nobody was sentenced to jail at all for any of that. On the other hand, the Democrats are using the Justice Department, the FBI, and all the federal law enforcement apparatus to hunt down grandmothers that prayed outside of the Capitol and grandmothers that pray at abortion clinics and putting them in prison for 5 years for praying at an abortion clinic. I think that's jailing your political enemies. A Democrat shot President Trump in the head. Bernie Sanders, Democrat volunteer, shot Congressman Steve Scalise on a baseball field. He barely survived, and he wanted to murder the whole Republican baseball team. You guys are trying to put Donald Trump in prison for decades and decades, I think more than 100 years. You're trying to jail your political enemies, but like the commie Soviets that you are, you constantly accuse your enemies, who are your next-door neighbors, of doing what you're actually doing in real time. Amazing stuff. And, at least you got Hanoi Jane on your side, who believes that COVID was God's gift to the left. And they don't believe in God, but, COVID did kill millions of people worldwide. So it is another gift to the left. It saved them a little work.
COVID is God's gift to the left. Now, with the Harris ticket, you will have a voice. If you want something to happen or you want something to not happen, you can lobby, you can protest, demonstrate, you can do all kinds of things. The Orange Man will not let that happen. He puts the people who don't agree with him in jail, and he said he's going to make their lives miserable.
Name one. Name one person he's put in jail. He was already president for 4 years. Name one. I can go down a long list of White House officials you guys have put in jail for, like committing Hunter Biden offenses, like violating the FARA Act, the Foreign Agency Registration Act. And you guys put members of Trump's White House in jail. You guys put thousands of people from the all-important January 6th riot in jail, hunting them down in Alaska, putting grandmothers in prison, and thousands. But none of the people that attacked the White House for 3 days and forced the evacuation of the president and burned the Church of the Presidents, and the only building in Lafayette Park was burned, and nearly 200 police injured, and nobody went to prison for that, not a single person. Nobody went to prison for the riots on the inauguration day of President Trump. Amazing stuff. Now, the headlines are, again, and it's the Soviet thing where they accuse you of doing what they're doing. The opposite is true, of course. That's Hanoi Jane, commie-loving, North Vietnamese, Viet Cong, Soviet Union-loving, totalitarian, beep. I had to beat myself because the word that was on its way out, I had to stop. Now, Trump threatens lawyers, donors, and election officials with prison for unscrupulous behavior, is the NBC News headline. And CNN headline, Trump threatens lawyers, donors with prison for unscrupulous election behavior. The Washington Post, Trump pledges to jail opponents. And these are the headlines. I want to share with you, right after the top of the hour, what President Trump said to inspire these reactions.